one, there are some exercises where you are calculating like this. Okay, 1 by 1 factorial plus 2 by 2 factorial plus 3 by 3 factorial, okay, or something, some x power 2 x by x factorial, or x power 2 by 2 factorial, x power 3 by 3 factorial. So series you are finding, suppose where you are finding n factorial, this is a series. Okay, now imagine the program that where you are calculating the factorial. Okay, 1 factorial, 2 factorial, 3 factorial, up to n factorial. Imagine that if you wanted to write this logic, then every time you have to calculate the factorial of that number, and then you have to apply this to the denominator, apply this to the denominator, and even in the top you are finding the power of that particular value now. So imagine that if you wanted to calculate this for 10 times, you will be writing that logic for 10 different times, guys. Factorial logic you will be writing for 10 different times, because you have to calculate the factorial for each and every number. So that is not a good idea. Okay, that is not a good idea actually. Rajshekhar, is it only for you or others? I hope others can see my blackboard. I think Rajshekhar, you just log off and log in. You can. Yeah, thank you. Thank you guys for confirming. Okay, Rajshekhar, I think you need to log off and log in once again so that you can get the problem resolved. Okay. Yeah, thank you. So this is what you need to write this logic for 10 different times. Yeah, thank you. So you need to write the logic for 10 different times actually. So that's not a good option. What you can do is instead you can define the function and you can call that function whenever it is required. Okay, you define the function once and you call the function only for calling. You just need to use that function for every time. You don't have to write the logic again and again. That is the basic advantage of function called reusability. Like if you know that all these predefined function like range function, int function, print function, length function, it has been written only one time, and but you are calling or you're using this for hundreds of time. I hope you have used a print function till now hundreds of time. You have used int function for thousands of time. Okay, and range functions for many times you have used. So you have used these functions as you write your program, but you never write the logic again and again. Imagine there are not no functions available for printing and converting integer and converting range. You have to write the logic for it. Then you can imagine that how big your program will be and how many times you need to write that int logic to convert string to integer, print logic for printing onto the console. So you will be writing in many times. You will be writing that logic in many times. Our programming will become hell because we have to keep writing the code again and again, which will be very, very tedious job. This reusability concept of functions actually is a very great advantage, that you can write the function and you reuse that program many number of times, many number of times. Okay, the second advantage of defining the program into functions, okay, defining the programs into functions will be your debugging, will be the debugging of the code, the debugging of the code. Okay, meaning that if you define any function now, like for example, if I ask you to write a program like addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, I hope you remember we did a program of a complex number where I added the complex number, subtracted the complex number, divided the complex number, and multiplied the complex number. Till now what we did is we have wrote the program everything in a script, in a single script. Till now we have written everything in a single script actually, right? Everything in a single script. But that approach is not a good approach, because that I cannot reuse that code again and again. I cannot reuse that script by any other person. Reusability is not by the same program. Reusability is nothing but by other programs as well. Like whatever the code I have written, it should be reused by other people. Till now many codes we have written, right? We have written a program to find the prime numbers. Okay, we have written the program to find the sum of the numbers. We have written the program to find lot of programs we have wrote till now, but I cannot reuse any of them because I have not implemented as a functions. I have not implemented as a function. I just wrote the code in some script, and that script cannot be reused anymore now. because the logic what I have written is actually present, but that logic cannot be reused by other program, or neither by you nor by other program. So there is no reusability. Now, if I wanted to write this program like addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, then I will write it in the form of functions now. If I write them in a form of function, then you can see the debugging will also be easier. Like for example, if I'm getting the output of the program, like for example, complex number program, I perform addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division of the complex number. When I check the result, I found that the division is actually getting me some problem. The logic, the implementation was not correct. I'll be getting wrong answer. I'll be getting wrong answer. Then, yeah, Roshan, I'll do that. So I'm getting a wrong answer. So you will not look at the whole program now. You just go to that program and you look at the program where you went wrong actually. You'll not go for the whole program. You'll not check the whole program from the scratch. The addition, subtraction, multiplication logic you will not check. What you will check is only division logic, because you know that you're going wrong in the division, so that's why you will go there and you will check the division program. So that's why I can say debugging will become easier because errors are localized. So errors will be only, you will check only that particular function where you are getting an error. Okay, you will not check the complete program. Let me just wait here and check, is that clear till now? And meantime, let me just give a quick overview like what we discussed till now. Actually, Roshan, we started a concept like programming paradigm. In programming paradigm, we stepped into first thing called procedural oriented programming. In procedural oriented programming, they says that you need to divide the programs into functions, whether you call it as procedural oriented programming, functional oriented programming, and object oriented programming. In all the way, the basic fundamental will be functions actually. So that's why we started with a concept called functions, because in all the three paradigm, the basic approach is divide the program into some parts or some sub programs, individual sub program where they do specific job or where they do specific task. So whatever we will be learning now will be useful for all the three: procedural oriented programming, parent functional oriented programming, and object oriented programming in all the way. Then we seen that functions can be of two types: built-in functions and user-defined functions. Built-in functions are the functions which are already defined, like range function, int function, print function, length function. They are called built-in functions. User-defined functions are the functions like which we define, like sum function, factorial function, okay, finding the sum prime. These are the user-defined functions actually. Okay, these are the user-defined functions. So we were talking about advantages of function, and the first advantage I told about reusability. Meaning once you define the function, you can reuse that function for any number of times. You can reuse the function for any number of times. That is generally called it as reusability of the function. Okay, debugging in the sense, okay, when you define the function, okay, separately, then as the errors are localized, it will be easy for debugging. Debugging means actually removing bugs, are generally called debugging. So if you get any problem, you don't have to look at the whole code. You just go to the function and you will rectify the error in that particular function instead of the whole code. That way I can tell you the maintenance of the function will also be increased, the maintainability. Okay, the maintainability of the code will also increase because of the debugging and reusability. It will be very easy to maintain that code. Okay, debugging is only possible for user defined functions. Yes, Udit, that's what I'm talking about. Okay, even for actually in Python, it is also possible with predefined functions, right? If you find some problem with that function, you can report to PSF, like Python Software Foundation. It's not only for predefined function, it is also for user defined functions as well, because it's an open source programming language, as you all know, right? So it is also possible with user defined predefined functions as well. Udit, I hope you agree. Okay, yeah. Yeah, not sure how means you have to look at the code, Udit. That's what Python has grown actually. You know, when I initially compared Python 2 versus Python 3, I told you there were a lot of problems with raw underscore input. There's a problem with many functions we talked about where they had a problem and how Python people have changed it. So people has come up with bugs. That's what Python has grown. If you see the history of Python, and especially when you start comparing Python 2 with Python 3, you will realize that how Python actually grown. Okay, so can we do step into step over and all? Yes, of course. You can just check the code and you can see that is there any bug or is there any problem with that particular function, and you can do over it. Yeah, you can do that in PyCharm. Yes, Udit. You can do that in PyCharm, that you can go and debug the code step by step. Okay, you run the code and see what is happening in your code step by step. That is perfectly possible with PyCharm. Okay, so let's go and continue with advantages, and then we'll see how we define the function. So the other advantages can be we can write the code in less time. Okay, less time comparatively, because I don't have to repeat the code again and again. I can do that code, even the less code I have to write. Okay, when I write the code, it will be less code, because all the problem, like because of reusability and all, I need to write the code with less time and less code and all. So these are the few advantages of defining the program into functions. Defining the program into function. Imagine if I'm writing a program, like I took an example of program. If I write the program whole logic in one script, will not be a good option. Let's learn how to write the program into functional approach. Okay, let's learn how to write the function into functional approach now. So let us see, the next thing is about the syntax now. Let us talk about the syntax of the function, how we define the function in Python. So let us talk about the syntax. The way you define the function in Python, the way you define a function in Python is you will use a keyword called def. Okay, you will use a keyword called def to define the function. You'll use a keyword called def to define the function, and followed by the name of the function. Followed by the name of the function. Okay, let's say the name of the function can be any user defined name. Can be any user defined name. Okay, can be any user defined name. And here we will be writing parameters or the arguments. It will take parameters. Let's say it may have multiple parameters. It may take parameter 1, it may take parameter 2. Okay, it may take parameter n. So any number of parameters we can take it here. Any number of parameters we can take it. Then followed by colon, followed by the colon. Okay, then you will have, okay, few things like you will have statements, I mean to say that local variables. Okay, let me say you something like we will have doc string. Okay, document string. We can write document string. We can have local variables. We can have local variables. Okay, and then you will have statements. Then you will have statements here now. Okay, then you will going to have few statements. Let me just select, and you will be having some statements here. Okay, some statements, and then finally you will have something called returning the value. Okay, you will have return the values. Return the values. Let me explain all these things in detail. Let me explain all these things in detail. So def is a keyword. First of all, to define a function in Python, we use a keyword called def. Function is the name of the function. Okay, function name actually. I might have write function name. Okay, I'll write in something like function name. Okay, so this is the name of the function. You can give any name to the function. It's a any user defined name. Okay, following the identifier rules, you can write the function name. So any name can be given here. Any name, any user defined name. Okay, where you will follow rules of identifiers. Parameters we will talk about in detail, but whatever I wrote in orange color here. Okay, not exactly an orange color, but a kind of. So whatever I wrote in orange color, they all are optional actually. So we'll talk about it in detail. This is optional, meaning if you don't write, nothing will happen. Parameters are optional because function may take parameters, may not take parameter. Okay, even doc string, local variables, and return values are optional. So first thing, let us talk about this. I think this is your body of the function. Body of function. Okay, so your function must contain at least one statement inside the body of the function mandatory. So this is generally how you define a function in Python. Let's go with an example now. Let's see an example how we define a function. These things I will be introducing one after the other. We will be introducing what is meant by parameters, what is meant by docstring, what is meant by local variables, and what is meant by returning a value. We will talk about all these things one after the other. Okay, so let's get into first. Let us see an example how we define a function in Python. Let us see an example now how we define a function in Python. For example, I define a function starts with a keyword called def. Suppose the name of the function is greet. The name of the function is greet. I'm not taking any arg parameters. It will be empty now, followed by the colon, and I will simply print here call hello. I'll simply print here call hello now. Okay, hello everyone, or simply hello. So this is my function definition, guys. Very simple. So instead of writing this printing call hello or hello world directly, I'll be putting inside my function because I can reuse this code any number of times. Whenever I wanted to say hello, I will not type hello. I just define the function so that I can have all these advantages. Okay, all these advantages. Reusability, that function can be reused for any number of time. Suppose in some day I increase the logic in this function, I wrote some 100 lines of code, then and I have multiple functions, then I can easily debug the code where I went wrong. Okay, and maintainability is very easy. Adding the code and subtracting the lines from that will be very easy because I don't have to look at the whole code. Okay, look at the whole code. Just go to the function and write it, and less time because I don't have to write that code again and again. And obviously, the number of lines will also reduce because I don't have to repeat that code. So all the way, I will get all the advantages once we define this function. So let's go to our program now. Let's go to our ideally. Okay, in ideally, for example, if I go for my script, okay, and I'll define the function here now. So here I'll define the function like def, and I'll define the function like greet, okay, with empty parenthesis. We'll have the colon, and we'll go here and define the function like print hello, okay, or welcome to procedural programming or whatever. Okay, welcome to functions, whatever I wanted to say. Okay, let's better say welcome to functions. Welcome to functions. Okay, that is a code I would like to write here. Okay. Sorry, it's greet, not great, right? Okay. Thank you. So the name of the function is greet, as we have written. Thank you, Shikawar. So we have written the function as greet now. Now tell me what will be the output of the program if I run this code now. If I just click on run module, as we used to do earlier, okay, what will be the output of this code? Okay, most of you things it will be no output, okay, and some of you thinks that it will print welcome to function. Nagaraja thinks it will be an error. Okay, yes, that's true, but why it will be an error, Rajshekar? Any syntactical error we did in the code? Why we think that will be an error? We define a function called greet, and I hope we followed the everything, but it will not be an error. That's true. It will not be an error. Simply when I run this code, it will have no output. Yeah, that's true. There will be no output of this program because we are not calling it. Okay, we are not calling it. Yeah. So right, that's why we are not calling it, because the first thing about the function is you have to invoke the function. Okay, the first point you need to know about the function is you have to invoke the function. Okay, so let us discuss about the points about the function. First thing, we learn an example. Okay, so first point what you need to do is, after defining the function, okay, let it consider as a second point. First point is defining the function. Second point is you have to invoke the function. Invoke the function to execute, because functions cannot be executed by themselves. Invoke the function to get execute. to get execute. So until and unless you don't invoke or you don't call the function, then the function will not get executed now. So you have to invoke or you have to call the function. So that's why when I go here now, when I run this program from my script, I can call the function now. I can call greet, it will say welcome to functions. I can call greet again. I can call any number of times. That's the beauty. That's called reusability. Here I have written only one line of code, but my function can contain 100 lines of code. The function can contain 100 lines of code. That all 100 lines of code, I don't have to write it again to call one more time. Imagine the life without functions then. If you have 100 lines of code and you wanted to perform some operation, then you have to write that code every time. But I'm not writing it every time, right? I'm just calling the function, I'm just invoking the function. The function is getting executed and all the statements, whatever I have defined in the function will get executed and will be printed or will be uh, like uh, operated, and you will get the result onto the output screen. So that way, the first advantage of the function is called reusability. And any error in that code, I can easily get it. Like if I have multiple functions, if I'm getting problem with any function, I will look at that function, not the other functions actually, not the other functions actually. Okay. And also the maintainability, like I can add new things into this function very easily. I can delete these things into the function and it will not affect the other functions as well. It will not affect the other functions as well. So easily I can maintain this function now. So maintainability will also be increased. Okay. And obviously that time and code will also be reduced because I'm not repeating the code. I'm not repeating the code. Okay. That is the first thing about defining the function. Let me check anybody having any doubt regarding these points. Anybody having any doubt regarding these 2 points? Yeah, thank you, Bull. Let me check with the syntax. Okay. We have learned how to use a keyword called def, followed by the function name. You can give any name to the function, followed by the function, like you have to follow any name, but here you have to follow the, what I mean to say, identifier rule. Identifier rule. Very common rule we will not follow while defining the function is the space. Generally, whenever a function contains multiple names, you generally give space in between. Instead of giving space, either you use underscore or you use camel case concept. Okay, better generally people uses camel case rule. Like as you seen that in function name, I wrote F small and N capital. So that way I can read that it contains multiple words actually. Yeah, once we define function, is it possible to use that function in some other program? Of course. It is also possible to use by other programs as well. Okay. So return will return only one value if you like, or use for loop in function. No, actually I told you it returns multiple values, Satya. We're going to talk about all these things one after the other. Okay. All the things I have written in orange color are optional. Okay, parameters are optional, document strings are optional, local variables are optional, return values are optional. That's why you see I didn't use anything in my program right now. I just define my function with no parameters and just simply print the value. I'm going to introduce all these things in detail. So if you have doubt in parameters, if you have a doubt in doc string, document string, or if you have a doubt in local variables and return values, then I'm going to discuss all these things in detail. No worry, no worry. If you have any doubt regarding the function, okay, how do we defining the function, colon, the indentation, everything is okay, or any wanted to discuss about any rule in identifier, I'll talk about it. So that's one of the good question from Vamshi, that can we define the function and can reuse that program by other program. That's what we discuss here, Vamshi, that reusability, that I can define the function. Okay, I can define the function and I can reuse that function in any other functions as well. Okay, thank you. So let me check with others as well. Any questions regarding this thing? I'll talk about Satyam. No worry about it. No worry. Yeah. It is not correct. See, once you say return, it will never come back to function again. Okay, it will never come back to function. So this is not the way you return multiple values. Okay, you get easily, Satyam. Okay, no worry. I hope you remember tuple, packing and unpacking. The same concept uses here as well. Okay, so that way you can pass multiple arguments sometime and you can return multiple values by the function using that concept of packing and unpacking. So I'll show you all the way, don't worry. Okay, so return will once, yeah, I'll take example later, don't worry. Possible we'll understand better once you would take more examples. Yeah, thank you, Narendra. Okay, that's what we're going to do now. We'll take more examples and we'll talk about it. But first thing, my intention is taking this example. I would like to explain you what is meant by docstring and what is meant by local variable and what is meant by returns value. That's what I wanted to discuss in detail first of all. Let us introduce docstring now. Let us introduce what is meant by docstring.